It's Monday, April 20th, 2020. I've been talking with you about some of the things that people spilled into my life when I was a child. I tried to wipe up those spills, but as I processed them, I only made them worse and turned them into stains. And some of those stains remain to this day. I fell into what one author has termed the performance trap because I came to the place where I believed that I was only worthwhile when I excelled. I believed that I was only worthy of being loved when I could prove that I was better than other people. I got there with the well-intentioned help of my parents, my teachers, my coaches, and my employers, and my friends. They spilled those things into my life, but I'm the one who turned those spills into stains. In the end, this belief that I had to earn the love of other people turned into a belief that I had to earn God's love as well. And that's when life became an exhausting, constant uphill climb, carrying all the burdens that God himself had laid on me. I climbed and I constantly looked for God's acceptance and love, but every time I tried to do what God wanted me to do so that I could get him to love me and accept me, I realized again how far short I had fallen of the perfection that I thought he was demanding of me until I was just finally exhausted with the effort. And then, having said all that, I had the audacity to ask you if you ever felt that way, if you ever feel like a failure who doesn't deserve God's love and acceptance. Before I say anything else, I want to read to you from Matthew chapter 11 so that you can hear something that Jesus said one day when he was traveling through Galilee. He had just denounced the towns of Chorazin, Bethsaida, and Capernaum because they had seen so many of his miracles but still had not repented. He rebuked those unbelieving people for not performing in keeping with what was expected of them. He spoke to them in the same way that I think he wants to speak to me sometimes. But after helping them to see themselves in the midst of their own messiness and sin, after pointing out to them the reasons they might have had for being weary from trying so hard and never succeeding, after pointing all that out to them, Jesus said something amazing to them. Listen to what Jesus said. "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light." Are you weary today? Are you tired of trying and not succeeding? Do you wish that you could just find some rest in this chase your tail life that you've been living? Then let me read that to you one more time. Jesus said, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light." His yoke is easy. His burden is light. Hey, when was the last time when you felt like a kid? When was the last time you felt really good and free of worries? When was the last time you woke up first thing in the morning and thought to yourself, "Man, it's good to be alive"? You know, I kind of sold my mother down the river earlier, and I need to tell you that most of the struggles I had with my mom started after I started school. Before I started school, at my insistence, she actually took the time to teach me how to read. She taught me arithmetic and got me as ready for school as any kid has ever been. But those aren't the sweetest memories I have of my mom. To this day, I remember waking up early in the morning and going to my bedroom door that she had quietly closed when she got up. I would open it and look out the doorway down the long hallway that opened into the kitchen. I was 3 or 4 years old at the time and probably wearing Donald Duck jammies, or more probably Incredible Hulk jammies. My hair, I had some back then, would always be a tousled mess, and the sleep was still in my eyes. I would make that long for early in the morning walk down the hallway and find my mother sitting in her chair at the breakfast table, listening to Song Time with John DeBryan as she did every morning. I would stand next to her chair, and without telling me to go comb my hair or wash my face, she would lift me up onto her lap and hold me tight. She would rock me in time to the songs as I laid my head on her shoulder, and for that one bright, shining moment, everything was right with the world. She welcomed me and held me in her lap, but not because I deserved it or had earned it. She welcomed me and held me because I had simply gotten out of bed that morning. She welcomed me and held me because I was her little boy, her son. And to this day, 60 years later, I still remember the rest and peace that flooded my soul, even though back then I would have not been able to put all of that into words. Do you remember what it was like to be loved just because you get out of bed? Do you remember what it was like to be tucked in at night? Do you remember what it was like when you were really little and you were standing by the side of the street waiting to cross as all those massive cars whizzed by? And do you remember how it felt when your dad would reach for your hand with his big, strong hand so that he could take you safely across? Only moments before, cars were whizzing by and you were scared, but suddenly, everything was all right. How long has it been since you felt that safe and secure? How long has it been since you felt that kind of rest and peace overwhelm you? Overwhelmed is a word that we use all the time. But how long has it been since you used the word overwhelmed to describe anything other than your level of stress and weariness? How long has it been since you felt overwhelmed by how much God loves you? How long has it been since you felt overwhelmed by the level of rest that you feel in your soul? How long has it been since you felt overwhelmed by how gentle God is? How long has it been since you felt overwhelmed by the fact that Jesus is humble in heart? How long has it been since you felt overwhelmed by how easy his burden is and by how light his yoke is? How long has it been since you felt overwhelmed by anything other than your level of stress and your weariness? Well, I guess that hearing a 63-year-old man talk about his memories of his mommy holding him on her lap and rocking him might seem odd to you. And maybe as I ask you to look back at those moments when you used to feel safe and sound as a child, you might think that to be just a little silly this late in life. I mean, you're not a child, so why would I ask you when was the last time you felt like one? And even if you're not as old as I am, those old memories and faraway feelings might be difficult for you to conjure. But I'd like to suggest to you that we all longed to feel safe and secure when we were children, but perhaps we think that these are some of the many things that change as we grow older. Instead of longing to feel secure as adults, we learn instead to long for a career that will help us to be secure. Instead of longing to feel safe as adults, we instead long for a neighborhood, a lock on our door, and maybe a gun that will help us to be safe. In other words, we outgrow our need to have someone hold our hand as we cross the street. We outgrow our need to crawl up into our mommy's lap and be rocked. We outgrow our need to be accepted for simply getting out of bed in the morning. But listen to me. We never, ever outgrow our need for love. I can't believe it, but time is gone again. I want to encourage you to take a few minutes in prayer again right now. Pray and ask God to remind you of your childhood and how safe you felt back then. Or if you had a childhood that wasn't safe, ask God to remind you of a time in your life when you did truly feel safe and loved. Ask him to remind you of a time in your life when you felt loved just because you get out of bed in the morning. Ask him to remind you of the time before people began spilling things in your life. Ask him to take you back to the time before you were in the habit of turning those spills into stains. And then read Paul's prayer in Ephesians 3:14-21 again. And ask God to give you a glimpse into how he intends to use the stain remover of his word to wash all of that away so that you can get back to feeling like a kid again. Let's talk again tomorrow.